So this is where it gets really difficult, because who's telling the truth, you or me?
And yeah, and that's right. And the thing is, when, COVID was there, nobody was able to go on the street. So obviously crime went down, and then it went up again. And then people say, oh, it's going up.
But
I mean,
this goes to our
there is,
subject.
I'm like, get out of here. I mean, it's complete fraud and lies and corruption on both sides if you only look at the two sides.
Mm.
And
I think this is
there is no savior. There is no savior coming.
no, no, and there's an argument that says that we, the proletariat, get the politicians that we deserve. So the amount of effort that we put in
That
is
is true.
represented in the leaders that we
That
elect.
is
And
true.
interesting, Jacqueline, this does go because I want to introduce the subject today, which I understand to be fear
Fear of
and
leaving.
fear of, and what is fear, and like I would suggest that we're resorting to tribalism as a response to the fear of the unknown. So what we stick with is what we believe, and there's been some research done around political beliefs that most people will adopt the political stance of their parents because that's what they're familiar with. That's what they were
Mm.
brought up with. And you then so that's this. Oh, let's go right back to safe. Safe is in mother's arms. They say the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Mm.
But here we are in the world with such an uncertainty. And so this idea of being able to cope with fear, emotional resilience again at work, fear is a big thing, isn't it?
It it is, and it is in today's age. I mean, I'm not even sure whether it was better at any time because TV was used for propaganda. And during the Second World War, people were always being manipulated by some, but now it's so obvious, it's so um, um, everywhere because we have all these different tools, and we never get the full picture. Like just look at sort of topics like global warming or what, no, global climate change. Well, in the
Mm,
70s, which you may remember, but I remember very strongly, I was a teenager. I finished high school in the late 70s. We were hurtling towards an ice age. I remember that in Europe, it was very proper, it was pushed out. I mean, Australia is a warm country, but in Europe, we have the cold winters, and we were hurtling towards an ice age. That's what we were told. Climate change was hurtling towards an ice age. In the 80s, which I remember precisely because I was a student, I went to Al Gore's movie, which was called
an
Inconvenient
inconvenient truth. Yeah.
Truth. And we all
Mm,
went there and we were, oh my God, global warming. And I do remember, because it was such a shock to the system to see what he's presented, I do
mm,
remember that he said Manhattan in the part of the in New York will be 50% underwater once we hit the year 2000. I remember that. And Holland is going to go because they have a lot of land claimed from the water. And,
below
and
sea
then, yeah,
level.
we get on with life. But as you said, we also contribute by being negligent or not bothering around things. And now it's global warming, and there is so much. And I actually tracked down a paper. This was a long time ago, so I cannot remember it so precisely. But this was a long time ago. I tracked back maybe just when we hit sort of the 2000s, the early 2000s, I kind of realized, I mean, what the hell? Do we have climate? I mean, climate is always changing, but is it as they tell us it is? I tracked down this paper that Al Gore apparently built his case on. And the professor, the PhD, who wrote this paper, and I wish I still had this paper. I wish I still had it. I don't know where it was or where it went. And he actually withdrew from the paper at some point. He was, he was saying, well, this was very early days, and I, made these proposals with caution, and he withdrew because it was politically used. I'm not saying one way or the other. Who knows what the hell? And then we have all these sort of ways of manipulating weather, which is now taught at schools. So people can't say we don't have cloud seeding. We have cloud seeding for a long time. And I just found out recently, a month ago, that this is taught in high schools here in Australia, that cloud seeding is used to manipulate the weather in a positive way.
Or where necessary to help break droughts, yes.
Yes, and I'm sure there are very good positive appliances for it, but I'm also sure there are other appliances for it. And we have all, I mean, the thing is, in all this convoluted information, there is a little bit of truth, then there is distortion, then there is propaganda, then there is we don't have a clue what's happening.
And I want to pick up on that, Jack, because I think this is really important. Because when we talk about fear, you've got to ask yourself, well, what can I control? What's the point of fear? What's the point of it? I mean, our intuitive reaction to being frightened, lions in the grass, we humans, we spot patterns. We have that ability to spot patterns or to sense the presence of danger. It was there to keep us alive. But nowadays, in the 21st century, we're constantly being triggered into the sense of danger by perceived threats that are being handed up to us for the purpose, potentially, may I say, of manipulating us. And this happens in the workplace as much as it happens in the home, as much as it happens in the community, in the media, and certainly in politics. It's about getting people with their agendas getting what they want. And they know we humans will react something like 80% more in terms of 80% more responsive to negative news than we are to positive news. So fear sells. Fear gets your votes. Fear sells newspapers. Fear controls the workplace. And it's I just think it's a real important point for our listeners to dig into, because if they're feeling fear, they've got to ask themselves why and who's generating it. What's the point? And if I decide not to be afraid of it, well, I might get eaten if there was a lion there, but nowadays, the worst I might get is publicly pillared.
Yeah, which, with some of the pictures images that are coming through is also fear-inducing. Who wants to be publicly pillaged? And then
But then I get to make a decision how I feel about that, Jack.
That's right. And then I mean I do also get that I'm also subject to this manipulation, where I have to constantly ask myself, how much truth is in this image that I see? Like, for example, they are these, let's say, whatever they are, demonstrations, rages, riots at the universities, some universities in the US, and we see certain pictures. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Some of it looks pretty scary. But I remember when I was a student in the 80s, we had huge demonstrations in Germany, anti-nuclear power plants. We had, up to 40,000 people attending, and I was
I saw you on television from New Zealand.
You would have seen me there. You would have seen me there. And I was marching with it. And I said, and I went, this was one of the biggest ones where we knew we had like 40,000 people there. And I said to myself, okay, with my little backpack and my food and everything, I said, I'm going to go all the way to the front. I want to see what's happening in the front, because 40,000 people, you don't get to see everything. It was a very peaceful march, absolutely peaceful march. I was there. And then I went to the front because I wanted to see, because this is what they show on TV. And there were, and I'm not exaggerating, I remember this precisely, there were 5 people from the demonstrations that were throwing, this was on a kind of like a field. It wasn't in the city, it was around the nuclear power plant, and it was sort of an open field.
So like a rural setting.
Yeah, rural setting, that's a good word for it. So there were five, give or take one, but 5 demonstrators who were throwing stones to policemen who were like 200 meters away. So basically the stones could do nothing. Now, I don't want to, make this laughable or, but the thing is, it was comical because they
But
were.
we're examining the issue of fear here. So please carry on.
Yeah. So the thing is, and I saw that spectacle, and there were police men, and there were, these big water hoses and stuff. And I saw this spectacle, which was comical in a sense because it did nothing. I came back home, and now the fear starts. I came back home. Well, I visited my mom, and my mom was just watching that on TV. And it looked like war. I was watching, I came home, I virtually just moved right into it. And I saw this on screen, and I thought, what the hell is that? And it looked like a real intense picture of a war zone. And my mom said to me, you didn't go to that demonstration. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, I was right at the front there. Can't you see me? I just wanted, and so what I saw is the difference of what I actually saw when I was there, and I was absolutely shocked. I've never seen that before, experienced the manipulation like this. And on TV, it was really fear. My mom was, oh my God, what is happening there? So, I mean,
and it's really interesting because, again, why did they do that? They did that to sell commercials.
Yeah,
To sell advertising,
to sell commercials,
to get ratings.
and
that's exactly it. It's, they did it to make money, and this is where you got to, or to take advantage of the populace, but also, okay, on the other side of it, nobody's at any stage saying it's a great idea to throw anything at anybody, because all you're doing is you're triggering off their fear reaction. And
you just
and you can't blame them for being fearful of being stoned by a mob. I mean, 40,000 people, 5 people start throwing rocks. How are the police to know that the other 39,995 aren't going to join in as well? There's a fair bit. There's a few more idiots out there than 5. So this whole thing, but it is perspective. This is a good word to use here for fear. What is your perspective? And if you can step back, you just explain, Jack. You were there. You saw it. Your mother's perspective was through the television. That was a manufactured perspective by an organization that had, shall we say, less than honorable intent in what they were doing.
And you just brought a third perspective in there that I hadn't considered, that there is a real threat that these 5 people that others cotton in, and then from 5 people we have 10, we have 20, we have 30, and the police were trying to control that. And you're right, and a crowd of 40,000 people is an intimidating crowd, even though there was absolutely peaceful. We were just walking along.
Even though there's no intent.
Even though there's no intent, you're absolutely right, because they can be triggered and then someone else chimes in.
Oh.
So that's another perspective. Yeah.
So could we go back to the workplace? Right?
Yeah, workplace.
And I think it's really important that we look at the stories that we allow to be told to us, and then the stories that we make up, and we do our best to get a reality check on it. What's the perspective quadrant? What's my perspective? What's the other person's perspective? What's the group's perspective? Forgotten the last one. Global perspective.
Yeah.
And then by doing that, when we talk about it in the Andrea method as changing your filters, we've all got our filters. We all see only a fraction of the information. And look, David Eagleman's The Brain. What's the one? Willful Blindness. I've forgotten the name of the
Willful
woman.
Blindness. Yeah.
Yeah. Go read those books. You understand just how little information we have, and then how within that parameter we make decisions on what is. And I like saying to people, well, look, how about we live life with a question mark? My boss is a jerk becomes my boss is a jerk? Possibly, maybe not, possibly. By that question mark, we add ourselves, gives ourselves different perspectives. And if we put this in context of the fear situation, and we talked last time we met about bullying, I'm being bullied. I'm being bullied. Step back. And I'm not saying that there's not real cause for fear, but you've really got to ask this question, why? What is this other person, what is this organization getting out of it if they've made you fearful? Your amygdala's triggered, you've got fight and flight going on, your brain's not working, they're not getting anywhere near your full potential out of you because you're operating out of fear. You're literally on fight and flight. When they need you to be thinking like Einstein, you're thinking like a rhesus monkey, because all your blood's gone to your muscles and your vital organs. This is just anthropological reality. We are human beings.
It is by biology. This is how the brain works. If you are emotional, you cannot think straight. And everyone would have experienced that. And to be able to think straight and look at the different options, you cannot be emotional. It is negative and positive emotion. If you are too excited about something, you can also not think straight. And
that's why I say love is blind.
What? Oh, right. I never thought of that, but that makes sense. Love is blind. Yeah, of course it is. You apart from the hormones that play a role also, or can play a role, they're different sort of. Yeah, it makes you blind. And the thing is also what I've also realized, thinking of what we're talking about, which are really important topics, politics, workplace bullying, climate change. These are really important topics, and people get emotional about it because they care. They care about what's happening.
They care, and they fear.
And they fear. And the thing is, what I also realized, I know that, but once we've made our mind up, if we go back to those two strange politicians in this other country, once you've made your mind up, oh, I'm this or that, the brain is looking for proof to prove that right and that wrong, whatever your decision is. If you believe climate change in the way it's told to us, and it's told in very different stories, if you take any position after not have done enough research, your brain will collect information to stabilize your position.
Reinforce that, right? Your brain will go out looking for information to reinforce your pre-decided decision.
That's right, without having really looked at all the different options. And when you look at all the different options, especially with topics like climate change, which is really, really complex, and we get information thrown at us from different sides, you think, oh, today I believe that, tomorrow, no, maybe I was wrong, maybe it's that. So what I'm also saying is, in this sort of, let's say, dualistic view, which is also something that we've been shoveled into, which is based on fear. Oh, I'm holding on to that. No, I'm holding on to that. Step away from it, which you also said, right, as in getting a different perspective, and not take these positions, I'm not saying staying Teflon and don't have a position, but stepping away from it and not getting caught in yes or no or this or no. And keep looking, keep questioning, as you said, keep questioning what is actually happening.
Stay in the question. Stay in the question. Because as soon as you decide, and I think I've said this before on this show, side, Latin for kill.
Yeah.
Decide. There are two options. You're killing one. Suicide, infanticide, pesticide, all about killing. So the longer you can stay in the question, the more information you'll gather, the higher the chance you'll get a better result. I really believe that key to this is for humans to understand they are flexible. We never were stuck. We feel we're stuck because we feel like we're stuck in a certain position. We're brought up in a certain family in a certain way. But we can actually make the decision to start looking outside of that. Now, this is where awareness plays a huge role in reducing fear, because the broader perspective that you can get of what's going on avoids you falling into this trap of myopically being in this moment, and yet what's happening there and whatever reasoning's going on there is actually being determined by the macro effect out here. So you want to step back, ask questions, understand more. And there are no guarantees. So here's something that, first layer reality. Let's go with this for a minute. You will get things wrong. You will make mistakes. You will take the wrong position, and that's okay. It's okay, because that's part of growth. If you think you've got everything right, yeah, see, told you go wrong.
And also when you sort of, the brain, the logical part of us, the brain and the ego likes to have precision and likes to know things. It doesn't like the unknown. It doesn't like the uncertainty. It wants to have certainty. It wants to be precise. So it's tending to take a position, because once I have a position, I'm seemingly safe. I'm avoiding fear, but the thing is, it's not avoiding fear, because it's also challenged all the time. But what I also find, once the brain takes a position, or the ego, or whatever, or the person, and sometimes you want to take a position because you need to make a decision, because you need to base certain things of that. But it also minimizes the options. So let's say if I'm on a job hunt, and I keep it open to start with, I have certain different interviews, I look at the companies, so it's open, I look at and I make my evaluation. Eventually, I do want to take a decision if I have a choice, and choose the company that I would like to work for. But once I've done that, which is perfectly fine, but once I've done that, I've excluded all the other options, which is fine for that purpose. But also at work, once you take a position, as in, my boss is my boss a bully? Is my boss like this? Then all the other options, how a person can appear, are closed off. So maybe
that's right.
That, yeah.
And you go about finding evidence to prove your position.
That's right. And that's all that's possible. But, everyone here is a human being. We can have a bad day. And maybe, if you do take a different perspective and think, how would his children think of him? Maybe he's an absolutely amazing, he or she, an absolutely amazing dad or mom. And how would, his peers think of him or her? And then you think, oh, maybe, well, they obviously like working for him or her. Who knows? So especially with relationships and interactions, we as human beings, I think we still have a lot to learn, and we don't want to close the options.
No, and I think that's one of the things there, Jack, is that sometimes our fear stops us from speaking our truth. You know, in Drea, we've got a line in there that says, speak your truth even if your knees are trembling.
Mm.
Because when you speak a truth, and so long as it is your truth, it's coming from your heart. I'm sorry to have to say this, Jack, but I'm feeling bullied.
Mm.
Right? I I might have it wrong, but I need to hear from you about what's going on for you, because I can't sustain it. This is not sustainable.
Mm.
Let's talk, you know. Okay, there is a possibility that you might get a bad reaction, but my bet, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a good reaction. You're going to get a reaction that says something along the lines of, and I won't do the act. You react to me, Jack. I've come to your office and I've said just what I just said. What are you
Yeah,
going to say to me?
I could say, oh my God, I was not aware of this. Have I treated you like this? Can you explain? When was it? That was not
Mm,
my intention. Or maybe I had
mm,
a, maybe I had a bad day, and then you have an
yeah.
opportunity to
Well, you
explain.
say, well, it was the other day where such and such and such and such went on, and then you're like, you say, oh yes, that was shit.
Yeah, yeah, and then oh right, yes, yes, yeah, yeah, that was
I'm
really.
sorry.
That's right. I'm sorry.
And
Well, this is where the
pressure
vulnerability
down.
comes in from both
Yeah.
sides. So
Both sides. Yeah.
you would have to bring in vulnerability to first approach it, and fear would stop it. Fear would say, no, no,
That's
don't
right.
do that,
Don't do
because
that.
you already made a opinion this person is aggressive, is a bully,
Yeah.
and so you have to be in this example. This was an
Mm,
example only.
mm.
You have to bring
Yeah, you're never mean to me, Jack, ever. Yeah.
you have to bring vulnerability in, but then it also opens up for the other person, in this example, me, the opportunity or the possibility to be vulnerable, because the space is there. If you act out of fear, then I would, naturally also close up. That's a natural sort of reaction. Yeah,
Well,
and
you got, if I'm acting out of fear and I'm not telling you what's going on, I'm radiating that fear, because
mm,
humans read instinctively
yes,
the room, right? This is what we call being. It's the instinctive reading of another that you're emanating off. And if you're being fear, you're in the office, your head down, you will not be communicating, not normally anyway. The chances are your productivity will be down. The chances are that your absenteeism will be up, and you'll be making a target of yourself. Your boss is going to be saying, "What's going on with John? What the heck's he do? What's going down there?" And he'll have no idea because he doesn't have ESP, and you're not speaking up.
that's right. That's right, and it may come across as strange or weird, and people may not know exactly what's going on. But we are hardwired to sense fear in other person, to sense inauthenticity. We just sense it.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
So
and
best to actually understand that that's going on. And I'm not saying for a minute that you shouldn't go and get support. If you've got an HR department, go and get an HR department. If you've got a mate you can talk to your mate. If it's a partner, you talk to your partner. Get the support you need. Make the preparations that you need to make, because that's just being smart. But what I really am getting to here is believe in yourself. Believe sufficiently in yourself that your boss hired you for a reason. Bosses don't hire people to give them jobs. They hire people to make money from the work that those people will do. And they need somebody to do that work so they can make their margin. You are a investment, and the return on investment only comes when you're highly productive. Your boss needs you to be engaged. He doesn't have, or she doesn't have to like you. I've had a few like that. I've even had one tell me, I don't particularly like you, but you get the job done. You go, hey, feelings mutual, mate, and keep paying. So it
that's
didn't
awesome.
last long, but you know but that happened.
That's
It
awesome.
literally
I mean, that
happened.
that person was very honest, and that is actually such a good point. Actually, I like to talk to that, because you actually don't have to like everyone, but you can still work with them, which is incredible, because it again opens up different possibilities. Who knows what the person you don't like, but you work with them and it can work quite well, what you learn from them. I
I
had a
don't think it's
boss.
sustained. You finish. Your way go.
Yeah,
Go.
I had a boss once. I mean, we just did not gel. I wouldn't say I didn't like him or he didn't like me, but we just did not gel.
Mm,
And
mm.
somehow we were trying, and it just it was like, yes and no, and it was black and white, and then at some point he said to me, and he gave me really good feedback, which helped me, which is really honest feedback, and he said, Jacqueline, can you for once not just run into my office and just smack bang all the problems on my desk? And I thought, oh, I was a little bit, I thought, oh, but I realized, oh, right, this is one topic of contention that we had. So I actually thought, okay, I'm going to cotton wool it a little bit. I'm going to come in his office and I say, and also saying we have put measures into place to mitigate the risk. This is what's happening, but we've put these measures into place. And he said to me, well done, Jacqueline. And one weekend we were working on the weekend, and we had a severe problem. But I thought, okay, if I call him, because I knew he was away with his family, if I call him, there's nothing he can do. We know what we need to do. It may go well, or may not. And when he came back on Monday, I told him the story, and he was really grateful. He said, you actually avoided calling me so I can have my break with my family. And you did well, because there was nothing I could have done, and you've done the right choice. So, the thing is, this is what's opened up from us not gelling to be open to receive constructive feedback. And actually I mean, he told me a few other things as well.
But that's
And
a high level of professionalism you've got
it,
there going between the two of you. So, and
yeah,
that's great. But also interesting, I was hearing you using active listening. Can you not just bring me problems? Okay, it's pretty clear, but then you thought about it. And this is one of the issues, that when we are hearing sounds hitting our eardrums, what we're really listening to, we have to understand is going through those filters. So, I don't know if you've seen the Far Side cartoon where the guy's talking to his dog and he's telling, good boy, Ginger, good boy, Ginger. Well done, Ginger. What Ginger's hearing.
oh,
What?
that's a good one. That's
It's a dog.
oh, that's a good one.
But and so we'll be very careful that we're not interpreting. And it is a discipline. It is a discipline to open your mind and say, I'm not going to, and it starts with making a decision not to be fearful.
And
Being
well, the thing
fearful
is,
is not going to serve you well in the 21st century.
it is not. Or, I mean, as you said earlier, if there comes a point where you may have to talk to someone with shaky legs. And I remember that I did this once, where I had to talk to one of my managers, and I was having virtually shaky legs, and I did it anyway. And
Mm.
and it hugely shifted certain things. I also needed to speak up firmly, and I learned that as well. And I had shaky legs. So
Mm.
yeah, it's always around also finding the balance and understanding, fear is also a mobilizer. Fear is not there to stifle you. Oh, I'm not stuck. Fear is evolutionary. It's meant to mobilize you. So if you see a lion, well, all you can do is run, I suppose. That's the best course of action. Run,
I'm
find a
not an
tree,
expert on
up the
lions.
tree. So fear is a mobilizer. fear is a mobilizer.
Yeah.
It has another side, and the
And
side is mobilizing you to then say, okay, I am fearful, maybe it could cost my job, but I'm not prepared to put up with certain things, and then see what happens. Sometimes, as
yes.
you said a couple of times today, different opportunities come up.
But in those circumstances, it's important that you speak your truth from your heart. Be clear about it. Do some practice. That's a good idea. But I also hasten to add here, Jack, this is not about um, disregarding fear completely. When I say make a decision not to be fearful, that's by looking at the evidence, saying, in this circumstances, is the fear real or is it not? You know, one of the things that I is very present here in Australia at the moment is this issue of gender violence, femicide, which is just dreadful at the moment. In talking to young men, though, it's really interesting. You say to young men, how many times do you think about your safety before you walk out the door? And men answer, never. And old men, hardly ever, never. You ask any woman, anytime, how many times they think about their safety before they walk out the door. It depends on how many times they walk out the door. Every time. Every time. And so there are real issues. When there are real issues of safety, then don't be silly. That's just putting yourself at risk. You don't do that. But when you feel this fear, particularly in the working environment, because again, talking about emotional resilience, question it, get stuck into it, and find out whether there really is reason to fear and what that reason is. And if it's not going to be resolvable in the workplace, then for goodness sake, get out.
Yeah.
You'll never function well in there.
It is.
It's just like
Very
that. Get out.
well
Why would you
said.
stay?
To make an assessment, I mean, not all situations are the same, and you can be in a very dangerous situations, and fear is then also helping you to stay focused and mobilize whatever you need.
Mobilize, yes, you say.
Mobilize.
This is this thing that fear. So fear is not a bad thing. It's how we deal with it and learn to play with it. And it's like you mentioned before that the brains want to be settled. They want surety. They want continuity. They want a pattern that they feel safe in working in. But if we stay in there, nobody goes to university. Nobody gets a degree. Nobody takes on the next step and becomes the boss, because there's the chance that that's not going to work. Nobody creates a business. Nothing happens. Nothing happens in the comfort zone. Zero. Well, actually, no, not quite. Recovery happens in the comfort zone. Yeah, you go out and you go outside that discomfort, into that area where you think uncertainty, shall we say. That's where the possibility happens. You can weight those odds by doing your homework. Literally, if you go to university, right?
Yeah, literally.
Literally, don't go to the pub. Do the tute.
Or don't do what I did, party all night and then show up at 9 o'clock at university with these big red eyes. Yes, you can do that sometimes.
I had a daughter.
In your 20s, when you're in your 20s, you can do this. In my age, I wouldn't survive.
Nah, I have a daughter who worked out that she could pretty much ignore her assignments and then go 24 hours and get a 7. And what do you say as a father to that? You know,
it's like
she'd stay at home. We're supposed to be going visiting people. She'd stay at home and come home and she's reading Harry Potter on the couch. I was like, aren't you doing an assignment? Oh yeah, I'll get to it. But she managed to whatever suits your style, go do it. But if you want to be able to create in your life and bring yourself to the world and achieve everything you could, then be prepared to do the homework.
Yeah.
Do the learnings, ask the questions, find out the more, and this is where again it's so important that people are engaged in their work. If there's something they really are interested in. If you're not really interested, you might
Yeah.
want to try something else
Yeah.
because you'll
Yeah.
never be the best at it.
And it is impossible to go through life without experiencing fear. But as you said, it's important to analyze. It's important to analyze, are there some people that are inducing fear into myself because they have a benefit from it? Am I in a dangerous situation and fear is absolutely appropriate? And yeah, so I think fear, it's impossible to not experience fear in your life. And also,
Well, if that were the case, that's ridiculous because
it's
you
like
imagine somebody driving a car with no fear. Like, no,
there are situations where you, oh my God, I could have almost hit that person. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
we need fear. As you say, it's a
keep,
mobilizer.
keeps
We just
us.
need to keep it under control.
That's right, and investigate. And also sometimes we fear kicks in, but it is actually not necessarily a situation where fear is appropriate, or there are some underlying other issues that induce fear. And then you have to question yourself, do I need to be fearful in this situation actually? Is this actually a situation where I should be fearful around, or not? Or is there something that's triggered me from maybe some past experience where, all of a sudden a fear is triggered? And there's also, we obviously the topic today is fear, but there is also, comfort is also has a room. Like, as you said, if you want to recover, and sometimes it's good to re-energize, so it's good to be in comfort, but not all the time.
That's right. That's right. I think the word inventory comes to mind, Jack.
The word,
When
sorry, the
inventory,
inventory.
inventory. So when you are feeling that fear, do an inventory. What's going on here? What skills do I have here that are relevant? Why am I in this situation? What's motivating this person who's inducing this fear? What's their game plan? And the more you dig into the question, the more you'll work out whether this is real and something you need to be concerned about, or whether it's just somebody posturing and should be challenged, and not taken on board. But you definitely, comfort has got a role to play. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to be able to make sure you're in the best condition possible for doing the
Yeah,
work that you want to do.
yeah. Hmm. Have we come to the end of this podcast?
Well, I think so. I think we've really
I
come to
think
the end. I
yeah,
think
I think
we've dealt with it a lot, delved into it, and I think there's a lot of good stuff in there, Jack.
it is, and we probably have a lot more to go on this topic. We can, fear is probably, and anxiety, which is a bit different from fear. So I think, in future podcasts we definitely be
do we jump
and then,
over to anxiety for the next one?
yeah, we could do anxiety. I think we could do anxiety for the next one, because that's a very big topic these days also. Yeah.
Yes, and it's important to understand that difference between fear and anxiety. And
Mm.
again, I'm going to talk about the role of awareness in that.